Welcome back to The Night Shift, where the line between what we see and what we fear starts to blur. Tonight, we're not telling just one story. We're diving into three separate, real encounters that all happened in 2025. Three nights that began like any other and ended with something watching, whispering, or reaching from the dark. These aren't legends. These are reports from ordinary people who recorded what they saw, called investigators, moved out of their homes, and still can't explain what came for them. All three stories share one thing: the moment someone realized they were no longer alone. So turn off the lights if you dare, keep the volume low, and stay until the end. Because these aren't just encounters, they're warnings. In the summer of 2025, a family from Birmingham decided to camp in Cannock Chase, a dense woodland area in Staffordshire, England. Cannock Chase is known for its beauty: rolling hills, ancient forests, World War II bunkers. But it also has a long history of unsettling reports, UFO sightings, werewolf-like creatures, and one of the UK's most persistent legends, the Black-Eyed Child. The family, David and Sarah Thompson, both in their late 30s, and their 9-year-old daughter, Mia, arrived on July 18, 2025, for a 3-day camping trip. They set up in a secluded clearing near the Birches Valley area, away from main trails. The first 2 days were normal: hikes, barbecues, Mia playing in the woods. There was nothing unusual. On the night of July 20th, 2025, around 11:15 p.m., Sarah was putting Mia to bed in their large family tent when Mia suddenly froze. She whispered, "Mummy, there's a girl outside." Sarah looked out the tent flap and saw nothing, just darkness and trees. Mia insisted, "She's staring at me. Her eyes are all black." Sarah dismissed it as imagination and zipped the tent shut. But around 1:30 a.m., David woke to a soft tapping on the tent fabric. At first, he thought it was rain or a branch. Then he heard a child's voice, faint, almost pleading, saying, "Can you help me? I'm lost." The voice sounded like a girl, perhaps 8 or 9 years old. David unzipped the flap slowly. Standing about 10 feet away was a small girl in a white nightgown. She was pale, barefoot, with long dark hair. She looked directly at him. Her eyes were completely black, no whites, no irises, just solid black voids. She repeated, "I'm lost. Can you help me?" David felt a wave of cold air despite the warm July night. His skin prickled and he said, "Stay there, sweetheart. We'll call someone." He turned to wake Sarah. When he looked back, less than 5 seconds later, the girl was gone. No sound of footsteps, no rustling leaves, nothing. The family stayed awake the rest of the night. At 3:45 a.m., Mia woke screaming. She said the girl was inside the tent, standing at the foot of her sleeping bag, staring. Sarah turned on the lantern. There was nothing there, but Mia was shaking, tears streaming, repeating, "She wants me to go with her. She said it's cold out there." The next morning, July 21st, 2025, they packed up early and left. On the drive home, Sarah searched online and discovered the Black-Eyed Child legend of Cannock Chase. Witnesses over decades describe a girl in white with pitch-black eyes who appears lost, asks for help, then vanishes when approached. Some report feeling intense dread or sickness afterward. A few claim the girl tries to lure people deeper into the woods. The Thompsons contacted Staffordshire Police on July 22, 2025, to report a lost child sighting. Officers searched the area but found no trace of any girl. They noted the report but classified it as unexplained. No missing children matched the description. David later spoke to a local paranormal researcher, Lee Brickley, a known Cannock Chase investigator whose aunt reported the same entity in the 1980s. Brickley confirmed the Thompsons' description matched dozens of other accounts: the white nightgown, black eyes, the plea for help, the sudden disappearance. He said the entity is often seen near old World War II bunkers or burial mounds in the forest, and sightings of this black-eyed girl always spike in summer. The Thompson family has not returned to Cannock Chase ever since their encounter with the black-eyed girl. Mia still refuses to sleep without a nightlight. David and Sarah keep the tent in storage but won't use it again. They say the encounter felt real, not a trick of light or imagination. The girl was solid, her voice clear, her eyes impossibly black. Cannock Chase remains a hotspot for paranormal activity in 2025 to 2026. The black-eyed child has never been explained. Some say it's a lost spirit from the 1800s. Others believe it's something darker, mimicking a child to lure people away. Whatever it is, it's still out there. In March 2025, a single mother named Anita and her 11-year-old son Michael moved into a council flat on Green Street, Enfield, North London. The same street where the infamous Enfield poltergeist case occurred in 1977 to 1979. The flat was on the third floor of a low-rise block built in the 1960s. Anita worked nights as a carer. Michael was in year 6 at a local primary school. They had lived there for only 3 weeks when things began. On March 28, 2025, at 2:14 a.m., Anita woke to loud banging coming from Michael's bedroom. She found him sitting up in bed, eyes wide, staring at the corner. The wardrobe door was opening and closing by itself, slowly at first, then slamming violently. Michael whispered, "Mom, it's back." Anita thought he was having a nightmare and closed the door, but the banging continued for another 40 minutes, loud enough to wake the neighbors below. The next night, objects in the house started moving. A lamp on Michael's bedside table lifted 6 to 8 inches into the air and hovered for 12 seconds before crashing down. Anita filmed it on her phone. The 18-second clip shows the lamp rising smoothly, no strings or visible force, then dropping. The footage was later shared with paranormal researcher Guy Lyon Playfair and appeared in a 2025 episode of Uncanny on BBC Radio 4. By April 5, 2025, the activity escalated. Michael reported a voice coming from inside his wardrobe, a deep male voice and angry, saying things like, "Get out, and this is my house." Anita heard it too on April 7th at 1:47 a.m., a low growl followed by, "Leave." She recorded it on her phone. The audio clearly captures a voice that does not match either of them. 7 days later, on April the 12th, 2025, the most terrifying incident occurred. Anita was in the living room when she heard Michael scream. She ran to his room and found him pinned against the wall, feet off the ground, as if being held by invisible hands. His face was pale, eyes bulging. The wardrobe door was wide open, and a black mass, described as like smoke but solid, was swirling inside. Anita pulled Michael down. The moment she touched him, the force released, and the black mass vanished. Michael had bruises on his upper arms in the shape of fingerprints. This incident made Anita terrified, and she contacted the local council and asked to be rehoused. They refused initially, citing no structural damage. Desperate, Anita reached out to Guy Lyon Playfair, who was now in his 80s, but still active in paranormal research. Playfair visited on April 19, 2025, with medium and retired police officer Steve Parsons. During the session, a chair in the living room slid 4 feet across the floor unaided. The temperature dropped 14 degrees Celsius in 90 seconds, and an electronic voice phenomenon recorder captured a voice saying, "Get out now," when no one was speaking. Michael reported seeing an old man with a burned face standing at the foot of his bed. Playfair concluded the activity was linked to the original 1977 to 1979 Enfield poltergeist case, possibly a residual haunting or intelligent entity that had lain dormant for decades. He noted that the flat was directly above the original Hodgson family home, separated only by a floor. The Hodgson family is the family at the center of the famous Enfield poltergeist case, a highly publicized alleged haunting and poltergeist activity that occurred in North London from August 1977 to 1979. The details of this case will be covered in our next video. Anita and Michael were finally rehoused on June 3rd, 2025. Since moving, all activity has stopped. Michael still refuses to sleep in a room with a wardrobe. Anita says, "I used to think poltergeists were just stories. Now I know they're real, and they're angry." The flat at 147 Green Street remains occupied. No further public reports have surfaced as of January 2026, but Playfair believes the entity is still there, waiting for the next family. In late 2024, in a quiet suburb outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the Higgins family moved into a two-story colonial house built in 1928 at 147 Oak Ridge Drive. Mark Higgins was a 34-year-old software engineer at the time of this event. His wife, Lisa Higgins, was 32 years old and a part-time teacher. The couple had a 2-year-old daughter, Emily, and newborn son, Jacob. The house they moved into had been on the market for 11 months. Previous owners never stayed longer than 3 years. The realtor mentioned that old house quirks, but he didn't say anything specific. The Higgins family loved the hardwood floors, the big windows, and the fenced backyard. They thought they had found their forever home. The new house had a nursery on the second floor, a small corner room painted pale blue with white trim. There was a white crib against the wall, a rocking chair, a changing table, and a high-end Wi-Fi baby monitor, specifically the Infant Optics DXR8 Pro, mounted on the wall above the crib, giving a clear view of the entire room. For a while, the Higgins family lived peacefully as expected, and there was nothing out of the ordinary. Everything in the house seemed normal until it doesn't. The first signs appeared in early January 2025, just weeks after bringing Jacob home from the hospital on October 14th, 2024. Lisa began receiving motion alerts on the baby monitor app at strange hours: 2:17 a.m., 3:42 a.m., 4:05 a.m., times when no one was in the nursery. The night vision feed showed a tall, dark, humanoid shadow standing beside the crib. It was approximately 6 feet tall, completely featureless. No face, no eyes, just solid black. Sometimes it stood motionless for 30 to 60 seconds. Sometimes it slowly leaned forward over the crib, as if looking down at Jacob. At first, Lisa thought it was a glitch or a reflection from the hallway light. She then texted Mark to ask if he was checking on Jacob. He was always downstairs on the couch or in his office. Jacob texted back, "No, I'm right here." She'd look again. The shadow was gone. Jacob was always sleeping peacefully, but the alerts kept coming. Every few nights, always between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. By mid-February 2025, they started recording the live feed. On February 14th, 2025, at exactly 2:53 a.m., the footage captured the shadow standing perfectly still for 47 seconds before slowly turning its head toward the camera lens. And at the exact same moment, Emily, who was sleeping in the adjacent room, woke up screaming. When Mark rushed in, Emily pointed at the wall and said, "The tall man was watching Jacob again." On March 8th, 2025, the most disturbing clip was recorded. At 3:11 a.m., the shadow leaned directly over Jacob's crib for 1 minute and 58 seconds. Jacob, who was 5 months old at the time, suddenly opened his eyes and stared straight up at the figure. His gaze followed the shadow as it slowly straightened and stepped back toward the wall. Jacob did not cry. He simply stared, wide-eyed, until the shadow vanished. Lisa, who was watching the live feed from her phone in the master bedroom, ran upstairs and found Jacob awake, calmly looking at the empty corner. The family contacted Steve Hummel, a Pittsburgh-based paranormal investigator with over 15 years of experience, in mid-March 2025 to come and check on their house. Hummel arrived on March 22, 2025, with EMF detectors, thermal cameras, full-spectrum audio recorders, and motion-activated lights. During the first investigation, at 2:47 a.m., the EMF meter spiked to 8 to 12 milligauss directly beside the crib. The thermal camera captured a distinct cold spot, a human-shaped void, standing exactly where the shadow had been seen. The temperature in that spot dropped 18 degrees Fahrenheit, while the rest of the room stayed stable. audio recorder picked up a low, raspy whisper at 3:09 a.m. A single word that sounded like mine. On the follow-up session, April 3rd, 2025, Emily, now 2 years and 5 months old, drew a picture of a tall black figure with no face standing next to a crib. When asked who it was, she said, "The man who watches Jacob at night. He doesn't like when I look at him." The Higgins family could not stay. They moved out on June 15th, 2025, leaving most furniture behind and accepting a financial loss on the house sale. They relocated to a new construction home in Cranberry Township. Since moving, Jacob, now 8 months old at the time of departure, and Emily have had no further disturbances. Lisa still checks the baby monitor every night out of habit. Mark refuses to discuss the house. The new owners moved in July 2025, and as of January 2026, there have been no public reports of activity, but the Higgins family has kept the raw footage private except for clips shared with Hummel and select paranormal researchers. Hummel stated in a 2025 podcast interview, "This is one of the clearest shadow person cases I've documented. The entity was not only visible on camera, it was interacting with the infant in real time. That level of direct engagement is extremely rare and deeply concerning. This remains one of the most well-documented baby monitor hauntings of 2025. The shadow figure has never been explained." In April 2025, a group of 4 friends from Germany booked a 3-night stay in a historic flat in Lisbon's Alfama district through Airbnb. The listing described it as a charming 18th century apartment on the 3rd floor of a narrow building on Rua dos Remedios. The apartment had exposed stone walls, wooden beams, small balcony overlooking the Tagus River. The host had excellent reviews. The price was reasonable. They arrived on April 17th, 2025, excited for a city break. The first night at the apartment was quite normal. The friends went out for dinner, came back late, fell asleep around 2 a.m. At 3:47 a.m., one of the friends, Lucas, woke up to a low murmuring sound coming from inside the wall behind his bed. It sounded like a woman whispering in Portuguese. Fast, urgent, repeating the same phrase over and over. He recorded 42 seconds on his phone. The audio later revealed the words, "No saias, fica aqui, no saias." When translated to English, this meant, "Don't leave, stay here, don't leave." Lucas woke the others. They listened together. The whispering stopped when they turned on the light. They checked the walls, the hallway, the neighbors, nothing. They went back to sleep, chalking it up to pipes or a TV next door. The second night, April 18th, 2025, the whispering returned. This time, it was louder, closer to the wall. At 4:12 a.m., all 4 friends were awake. The voice was no longer just behind one bed. It seemed to move along the walls, circling the living room. One friend, Anna, placed her hand on the stone and felt it vibrate slightly, like someone was pressing from the other side. The whispering changed tone. It became pleading, almost crying. They recorded again. This time, the voice said, elevem agora." This meant, "He's coming? He's coming now?" At 4:38 a.m., every light in the apartment flickered once and went out. The power was still on in the rest of the building. Only their flat lost electricity. Phones still worked. They used flashlights. That's when they heard footsteps. Heavy, deliberate. Walking slowly across the ceiling above them. The flat on the 4th floor was empty. The host had said it was under renovation. The footsteps paced for almost 7 minutes, then stopped directly above the living room. Then came a loud, single thud, like something heavy dropped onto the floor above. The group grabbed their things and left the apartment at 5:02 a.m. They sat in the stairwell until dawn, too afraid to go back inside. When the host arrived later that morning to check on them, after receiving frantic messages, she was visibly nervous. She admitted the flat had a history, but said previous guests never complained. She refunded them and let them leave without penalty. After returning home, The friends posted their audio recordings and a short video of the lights flickering on TikTok and Reddit. The videos were viewed over 1.2 million times before being taken down by the posters due to harassment and threats from the host's family. A Portuguese paranormal researcher, Ana Margarida Oliveira, contacted them in May 2025 and confirmed the building's history. In 1789, during the aftermath of the Lisbon earthquake recovery, a woman named Mariana da Silva was allegedly walled up alive in that very building by her husband after an affair was discovered. Local records from the time mention a missing woman and a sealed upper room. Anna visited the flat in June 2025 with permission from the landlord. Using a thermal camera, she captured a persistent cold spot moving along the interior walls, always at head height, between 3:30 and 5 a.m. Audio recordings from that night picked up the same whispering phrase, "No saias, fica aqui." The flat was quietly taken off the rental market in August 2025. As of January 2026, it remains unoccupied. The building's owners have refused comment. In February 2025, a 28-year-old Australian backpacker named Ethan Cole checked into a 3-star hotel on Phetchaburi Road in Bangkok's Pratunam district. The hotel was popular with budget travelers. Clean rooms, good location, low rates. Ethan booked a standard single room on the 7th floor, room 712. He arrived late on February 9th, 2025. After a long flight, he showered and went to bed around 1:30 a.m. At 3:22 a.m., he woke to a woman screaming. Not muffled, not distant, but inside the room. The scream was raw, panicked, like someone being attacked. Ethan quickly got up, turned on the light. Nothing. The room was empty. He checked the bathroom, the wardrobe, under the bed. Empty. The scream had stopped the moment the light came on. He thought it was a nightmare or a TV from next door. He went back to sleep. The next night, February 10th, at exactly 3:22 a.m., again, the scream returned. Louder, closer, sounding like it came from the space right beside his bed. This time it lasted 12 seconds, then cut off abruptly. Ethan recorded the last 4 seconds on his phone. The audio captures a female voice screaming in Thai, "Help me! Don't kill me!" followed by a choked gurgle and silence. Terrified, Ethan went to reception at 3:45 a.m. The night manager, a man named Somsak, looked uncomfortable. He said, "Some guests hear things on the 7th floor. We can move you tomorrow." Ethan demanded to move immediately. Somsak said all rooms were full but offered a discount if he stayed. Ethan refused and slept in the lobby on a couch until morning. On February 11th, he was moved to room 514 on the 5th floor. That night, nothing. He thought it was over. But on February 14th, 2025, a new guest checked into room 712, a 35-year-old British tourist named Sarah Bennett. At exactly 3:22 a.m., she posted a frantic voice message in a Bangkok travel Facebook group. "There's someone screaming in my room. It's coming from the wall. I'm alone. What do I do?" She attached a 9-second audio clip of the same scream Ethan had recorded. Identical phrasing, identical timing. Sarah fled the room and went to reception. The same manager, Somsak, moved her to another floor and apologized, saying, "That room has problems." Sarah demanded an explanation. Somsak eventually admitted that since January 2025, at least 7 guests in room 712 had reported the same scream at exactly 3:22 a.m. Always a woman begging for help in Thai, always cutting off suddenly. Thai police were called on February 15th after Sarah filed a complaint. Officers searched the room and the adjacent walls but found no hidden speakers, pipes, or structural issues. They interviewed the hotel staff. One housekeeper, 52-year-old Nonglak, quietly told officers that in 2018, a female guest in room 712 had committed suicide by hanging herself in the bathroom after a domestic argument. Her name was never released publicly, but staff said she was 29 and had screamed for help during her final moments. No one heard her in time. The hotel quietly stopped renting room 712 after February 20th, 2025 and listed it as under maintenance indefinitely. As of January 2026, the room remains sealed and unused. Ethan and Sarah's audio recordings were analyzed by a sound engineer in Bangkok. No evidence of digital manipulation or external sources. The scream originates from inside the room itself. The hotel has refused all media requests for comment. Former guests who stayed in room 712 before January 2025 have come forward saying they heard nothing, suggesting whatever is there began manifesting only in early 2025. Whatever it is, it screams at exactly 3:22 a.m., and it always says the same thing, and that's where we'll end tonight's haunting. If any of these stories stayed with you, if they made your skin crawl or had you checking over your shoulder, then you know what to do. Subscribe for more true stories that refuse to be forgotten. Leave a like if you felt the chill, and drop a comment below telling me which story disturbed you the most. Until next time, sleep lightly.